Storytelling, gameplay, and graphics are known as the three important factors in a single player game. However, a game can have a lot of other factors such as cinematics, sound design, character design, voice acting, etc. etc. But story, gameplay, and graphics are the only factors which catch the eye of the player the most. Plus, they get discussed more than any other factor in the gaming community. So we are going to talk about these three factors in this video. Now what if I ask you that which among the following matters more in a single player game? You will find that it's really hard to decide this because focusing on just a single factor and ignoring the rest is a bad move. Because if that will happen, then the result will definitely gonna disappoint the players. Having a balance is really necessary when you are making a video game. A disbalance should be avoided. So I think that you have seen that all these three factors should be focused upon equally. Now, is it relevant to say that the same balancing formula can be applied for every type of single player game? Well, the answer is a really big no. Why is that? Well, this is what we are gonna discuss in this video. We are gonna understand this thing with the help of a little mathematics. Now don't worry, I won't make things complex. You will eventually get what I'm trying to say. Okay, so the gaming community usually debates with its members that which among the following is the most important factor when it comes to single player games: story, gameplay, or graphics. Story, the plot of the game; gameplay, the factor with the help of which the player experiences a game; graphics, the display and the scenery and environment of the game. Now, which among these actually matters the most? Well, the answer to this question is not something which most people expect it to be. Some say that it's alone gameplay which matters. These kind of people usually troll story-driven games by calling them movie games, which is really stubborn because talking shit about a game without knowing its genre is really irrelevant. Now, some people also say that story matters the most when it comes to single player games. For example, me. Yeah, you heard me correct. I used to believe that story is the most important factor in a game, but soon I changed my mind on this after gathering knowledge about different games and different genres. Anyways, let's come back to the topic. In order to answer this question, we are gonna divide single player games into the following categories: normal linear games, horror survival games, open world RPGs, Souls-like games, and roguelike games. Please note that we are not going to focus that much on the roguelike genre for now, because that genre is really complex that a whole video can be made on this topic alone. So let's leave that for another video. Well, now let's continue this further. First of all, let's talk about normal linear games such as Uncharted, Brothers Tales of Two Sons, and Metro Last Light Redux. These type of games allows the player to take only one path, and these type of games are known for their storytelling as well as gameplay. Graphics are not considered as an important factor in these types of games because games like Uncharted 3, who are not that good in graphics, are also loved by many gamers. Whether the game is 2D or 3D, it doesn't matter because Brothers Tales of Two Sons is a 2D game, but it has inspired masterpieces like Plague Tale Innocence and Requiem. So I think you have seen that story and gameplay are more focused on in these types of games than graphics, because game's story makes the game more memorable and gameplay decides the overall game's performance. So from here we have got our first equation, which is story greater than or equal to gameplay greater than graphics. Let's talk about survival horror now. This genre consists of games like Last of Us, Resident Evil, and A Plague Tale. Now you must be wondering that all these games which I just mentioned are linear games, so why distinguish them from linear games? Well, yes, they are linear, but a linear game with survival horror genre differentiates a lot from a linear game which is non-horror survival. And we are gonna discuss now why is that. Well, in horror survival games, a key factor is always focused upon, and that is sound design. Because soundtracks in these games play a major role, because it helps the player to feel the atmosphere of the game. They must experience that they are themselves in the game instead of the main character. And not only this, the soundtracks also depends on the atmosphere and the location in which the protagonist is exploring. This is why I talked about sound design despite saying in the starting that we are not gonna go in details of other factors, because sound design matters in horror survival just like lore and gameplay. Anyways, now let's talk about our three main factors. What do you think that this equation is going to be like? It will go something like gameplay greater than or equal to story, greater than sound design, greater than graphics. I know there are a lot of questions going inside your brain that why gameplay is higher than story and why graphics is at the last. Let me answer them really quick. Gameplay is kept before story because it plays a huge role in making horror survival a completely different genre. You have probably seen that the modern day third person horror survival games have got a one similar gameplay style in common, and that is they all have got over the shoulder camera angle in their gameplay. If you don't know that what is over the shoulder camera angle, then in simple words it is the camera angle which was used in Resident Evil 4's gameplay. Almost all third person horror survival games which we see today are influenced by this camera angle because it is the best camera angle for survival horror games. For understanding this better, you can try imagining Resident Evil 4 and Last of Us with Uncharted and Tomb Raider type camera angle. You will find that it will make them absurd because the exploration and locating items will become really easy. And if that becomes easy, then the game will not be worthy enough to be termed as horror survival. So this is why we often see over the shoulder camera angle in mostly third person survival horror games, because it makes the exploration challenging, which is what makes horror survival a horror survival. So this is why gameplay was kept in front of story in this one, because it influences the horror survival's overall performance. Plus it puts an impact on the player too. Now I sure kept gameplay in front of story, but that doesn't mean that a story should be ignored entirely. A good story is really essential in a horror survival game, otherwise it won't make any good impression on the person who is playing it. Examples are Last of Us 2 and Resident Evil 3 Remake. These games had amazing graphics and gameplay, but their story became their demise because they weren't able to leave good impressions on the gaming community. So a good story is always mandatory. Now I have kept graphics in the last because they don't matter as much as compared to the other three factors. Because in past we had games like Resident Evil 3 and 2 Original, Silent Hill and Alan Wake, which weren't graphically strong, but they are considered as masterpieces by a lot of players. Now by keeping graphics at the last, I don't mean that they don't matter at all. Good graphics can definitely play a role in making the game seem more alive and stunning, and can also be used as a key factor in making a survival horror game look more astonishing to the player. But gameplay, lore and sound design should always be kept in front of graphics in a horror survival game's case, because they are the ones who impacts player in most cases. So they do matter if we talk about modern day survival horrors, but not more than gameplay, story and sound design. Now let's move on to the next genre, which is open world and RPGs. This genre contains games like Horizon, Red Dead Redemption, Witcher, Skyrim and Hogwarts Legacy. Now I am gonna ask you that how do you think that the equation is this case is going to be like? Pause the video and think about that. Okay, time's up. Let's take a look at the equation. It will be something like this. Graphics is equal to gameplay greater than quest design greater than or equal to lore. Now I know that a lot of questions are going on inside your brain. I will answer them one by one, don't worry. First of all, I kept graphics at first because of a really simple reason. Open world. This genre's name itself says that we are gonna get a whole world to explore. So it's obvious that the player wants the world to look beautiful and full of life, not a gloomy and lifeless environment. Because if you take a look at any modern open world game, then you will see that all of them has got outstanding graphics. Even if we take a look at older games, then we see that they too had the best graphics of their time. So graphics matter in open world games because the player wants to explore its world. So can't really provide them a world with shitty graphics, right? Okay, let's talk about gameplay now. Again, you probably know that what's shown as equal to graphics, and that's right. It's because, like I have said, that gameplay is the factor with the help of which the player experiences a game. Now tell me, if I gave you a game who has got good graphics but a really clunky and glitchy gameplay, will you like it at all? Probably not, because you will not be able to experience it properly, even if it has got good story and graphics. So I think that it's clear to you now that gameplay matters in open world games as much as graphics. Now let's talk about this factor which I have added in the equation. Quest design. It basically means the missions which are given to the player in open world and RPG games. So it's pretty obvious that you want them to be well designed, because they are connected with the main story in many ways. Like you have seen in many RPG games that sometimes doing side quests can also be mandatory, because in some cases they are related with the main quests. So we gotta play them in order to progress, which is why quest design is an important factor in open world RPGs, because not only the player spends half of their time on them, but they are also connected with the main plot, which is why I have kept them in this equation. Now let's come to the story. I may have kept this factor at the last, but that doesn't mean that this should be ignored. After all, it's the plot which makes the game emotional and memorable. Tell me for yourself, is RDR2 a 10 by 10 masterpiece just because of its gameplay and graphics? Or is it relevant to call Assassin's Creed Ezio Trilogy a bad franchise just because its outdated graphics and gameplay mechanics? Or is it relevant to call GTA 5 better than GTA San Andreas? No, because sometimes gameplay and graphics aren't the only factors that are necessary for making a masterpiece. Both of these factors do matter, but we should not forget that a good way of storytelling can help the game to make a special place in heart in its player. Now before writing "I want to play a game, I don't want to watch a movie" in the comment section, listen to what I have got to say. I don't mean at all that story is the only thing which matters. I am trying to say that story is one of the important factors in an open world RPG. Gameplay and graphics do matter more than it, but that doesn't mean that this factor should be ignored. I hope you get it now. Okay, so let's move on to the genre which is respected by a lot of gamers in the gaming community. A genre whose games barely has any cutscenes, but still can make a special place in our hearts. Yes, that is none other than Soulsborne. Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Demon Souls, etc. comes under this genre. Now let's make our equation. The equation for this genre will look something like this. Gameplay greater than or equal to sound design, greater than lore, greater than character design, greater than or equal to graphics. Let me do the explanation now. Gameplay again, because it's the backbone of the game, as it is the factor due to which player experiences the game. Sound design is kept next to gameplay, and many Souls players know why. Well, that's because soundtracks play an important role in these games. You have definitely noticed that how cool the music in Souls games is, especially the theme songs of bosses, and these soundtracks helps in making the game feel more intense and, more importantly, more creepy, because certain locations in Souls games have got really horrific soundtracks. For example, Hypogean Jail from Bloodborne. This OST still sends chill down my spine. Then we have the Centipede Giraffe OST from Sekiro. So OSTs play a major role in Souls games because they influence the player's experience throughout the game in many ways. Now before talking about lore, let's talk about character design, which is present in this equation. Well, character design basically means the artwork of characters of game, and this is one of the major factors of a Souls game, because if you will watch any Let's Play YouTuber play any Souls game, then you will see that they often comment on certain enemies and bosses by saying that, "Whoa, this looks so cool. This boss is so cool. I really love this design," etc. etc. This matters because it's one of the factors which catches the eye of the player. So we can't really ignore this factor, right? Also, if boss looks menacing and terrifying, then fighting it becomes even more intense. And there's one thing which you have definitely noticed in Souls games, that is that some enemies in them are really disturbing. So disturbing that you can't even look at them. And it makes the game more tough to play because we feel uncomfortable. And if we don't, then the game will become too easy. It won't be a Souls game then. So this was another reason that why character design matters this much in a Souls game. Now let's talk about lore. Why I have kept lore in front of character design? That's because the lore in these games might not catch the player's eye that much as compared to the other factors. But its complexity is what that makes it one of the most important factors. You definitely know Vativedia and other content creators who study the lore of Soulsborne games. And if you watch them, then you might know that how lores in these games are really deep and complex. And you won't believe that it's one of the reasons that these games are respected. They don't easily reveal their lores to the players, which is why this genre outstands from the rest. And not only that, a complex lore is one of the most important factors in a Souls game, but it is also an impressive example of marvelous writing. It's truly an art, which can also inspire a lot of young writers who want to pursue creative writing as a form of career, especially if they want to become a writer for video games. Studying about these complex lores is really interesting, which is why they are one of the most important factors of a Souls game. Okay, let's talk about graphics now. I may have kept this at the last, but that doesn't mean that they don't matter at all. Graphics in Souls games make the game beautiful in its own way. Yeah, it might not be gorgeous like RDR2 or Hogwarts Legacy, but they give a unique touch to these games. If you have played them, then you are probably getting what I'm trying to say. Now let's move on to the next genre, which is roguelike. As I have said at the starting that this genre is really complex. If I started to explain this genre, then this video will become really long. And also, it can get really hard to define this genre, which is why I'm gonna leave this topic for another video. For now, let's focus on our equations. This genre consists of games like Returnal and Hollow Knight, and the equation will become something like this. Gameplay greater than sound design, greater than or equal to graphics, greater than or equal to character design, greater than lore. Gameplay is at first because it's obvious. These games like Souls games are gameplay based. Sound design is at second because soundtracks in these games are out of this world. For example, take a look at Hollow Knight's OSTs. They are really calming to the ears. Not to mention that they even made Emulation cry. So they do matter, just like in Souls games. Character design, again because it catches the eye of player, just like Soulsborne. Lore, again the same reason, complexity and beautiful work of art, just like before. Now graphics are kept at third because they play a huge role in making the game beautiful. For example, in Hollow Knight's case, it's just gorgeous despite being a 2D game. This game looks really pretty. The graphics are really touching to the player's eye, which is why they matter in these games. These games have their own separate world, unlike other genres. So graphics can influence the player's overall experience in a lot of ways in roguelike's case. So I hope that all the equations are clear to you till now. Now let's talk about a bonus genre. Choices based games such as Life is Strange, Dark Picture Anthology, Detroit Become Human, Until Dawn, etc. etc. Now the equation will be something like this. Story greater than gameplay, greater than voice acting, greater than graphics. Story is kept at first because in these games it's the player who decides the ending, and some elements in the plot with their choices, so giving them a disappointing story is not a good move at all. If you have played any choices based game, then you definitely know that what I'm trying to say. Now gameplay is kept after story because you have probably seen the QTEs in these games. Sometimes they can be really unpredictable, and they also make the game more fun and intense. Sometimes you have to make the decision very quickly because the game puts you in a crucial moment without any warning. So this is why gameplay is placed at second, because it's related with the QTEs in many ways, which is why it matters. Next we have voice acting, because these games have a lot of dialogues. So good voice acting is necessary because you are gonna listen to the characters talking, so you definitely want an amazing performance by the VAs. Now an important point. Just because these games are not gameplay based doesn't mean that you should troll them by calling them movie games. Because just like roguelike games, these games too have their own separate world. Games like Life is Strange, Walking Dead, Until Dawn, Detroit Become Human, etc. are loved by a lot of gamers as well as Let's Play YouTubers. So before calling them movie games, kindly gain knowledge about them and try to get into them. Then talk, okay? So now time to end the video. Some of you are probably thinking that IG, you just told us about the equations but you didn't give the proper answer that what really matters the most among the three. Well then, let me tell you that the answer to this is neither a yes nor a no. It depends on what type of game you are playing. If it's a linear game, then story and gameplay matters the most. If it's an open world RPG, then gameplay, graphics, quest design and story matters the most. If it's a Soulsborne game, then sound design, character design, gameplay and lore matters the most. If it's a roguelike, then gameplay, character design, graphics and sound design and lore matters the most. If it's a choices based game, then story, voice acting and gameplay matters the most. So you have seen that arguing about that what matters the most among gameplay, graphics and story is pointless, because it depends on what type of game you are playing. It works differently for different types of games, which is why saying that gameplay matters the most or story matters the most is stupid AF. Alright, time to end this long ass video. I hope that it was not boring to watch, and be sure to tell me about your own equations regarding these topics in the comment section. And I will see you all in the next video. Till then, take care and bye bye.